Okay, so today we're going to talk about kitten behavior basics and starting them off right to hopefully prevent behavior problems, because that is really the key. If you can prevent the problem in the first place, then you don't have to deal with it down the road when it's already developed and it's much more difficult. So the first thing I want to talk about is some species facts. Cats are both a predator and a prey species, which means they hunt, which we all know that, but they also are hunted by bigger things. And that's something that you really want to keep in mind when you're thinking about how do I need to set the home up right for the kitten. They normally live in familial groups, which is related females and their kittens. The males kind of leave when they hit social maturity and they roam around, and they actually have a pretty wide-ranging territory. And it can be up to 4 miles or more in unneutered males, which is a lot. And obviously in your house, you don't have 4 miles of territory for the cat to explore. So then we need to think a little bit about social development. The sensitive period in kittens is much earlier than it is in puppies. It's from about 3 to 9 weeks. It may extend up to 12 weeks in some kittens. But what that means is they need lots of positive exposure to handling, to other animals, different toys, different types of food, and strangers in that time period. If they don't get exposed to that stuff until they're 4 or 5 months of age, they are not likely to be okay with it. They're going to be a lot more likely to be scared. And that's why you see feral cats more often, because they didn't have any exposure to handling in that very young age. So that's something that actually has to be started before they leave mom, because they should be with mom until they're about 8 to 9 weeks old. And in some cases, there's some people that say actually a little bit longer than that, which means they really have to be handled while they're still with mom. So important resources for the cat: food, water, litter box if they live inside, something to scratch on, resting and perching spots, and hiding spots. And we're going to go into detail about each of these things. So when you talk about feeding with cats, they are true carnivores. It means they have really high protein requirements and really low carbohydrate requirements. They hunt for their food. Their normal meal is a little, maybe 30-calorie mouse or bird that's about 70% water, mostly protein with just a tiny little bit of carbohydrate. Which means that if you're looking at feeding them in your house, obviously you're not going to be feeding them mice and birds. Canned food is actually more closely related to their natural diet. We do dry food. I feed my cats dry food. However, dry food was developed for our convenience, not for the cats. And so you really, if you're going to feed dry food mostly, you still need to offer some canned food, because especially when they get older, there are many diseases that we want to treat that require adding some moisture to their diet. And if you have never exposed the cat to canned food, and now it's 12 years old, and we say, well, you need to feed some canned food, you're going to have a really hard time doing that. Because again, they get used to stuff when they're young. Cats don't. The other thing that is helpful, since we're talking what you're going to do with your indoor kitten, is puzzle toys, because cats hunt for their food. They don't walk over to a bowl, find food sitting there, and eat it. It's not the way it works in the wild. And they are very strongly inclined to use, to hunt for their food. So I have a little video here, which is taking a minute to load, that just demonstrates that. And so this cat is using what's called a no-bowl feeder. So it's a little mouse. It's got a couple little holes in the top, and it's got this nice little cloth around the plastic that makes it look like a little mouse. And what you can do is you can just put them out, and they have to roll them around, or you can hide them so that they have to go find them, and they have to roll it around to get the food out. So they can't just eat everything all at once. It's a little bit more like what they do in the wild, which is they play with their food before they eat it. If you've ever watched a cat hunt, that's what they do. And that's what they love to do. So we want to make sure that they get the opportunity to do that, because if we're trying to prevent behavior problems, you have to let them express their natural behaviors. we have to find ways they can do that that are pleasing to us in the house. I certainly don't want a cat killing a bird or a mouse on my kitchen floor and then gutting it. That's not okay. But we need to give them that opportunity to hunt. So then play is really important too. And cats typically need multiple short sessions. They don't play for long periods of time. They play for like 5 or 10 or 15 minutes and then they're done. And they need lots of variety. And so there are a whole bunch of different toys that you can get. Some of them require you to play with the cat. Some of them are things they can play with on their own. There's a couple of examples on here. The one thing I will say about the little fishing line toys, those are great, but they can only be played with when they're supervised. And when you're not playing with it, it needs to be put away somewhere that your cat cannot get to it. Because some of them will decide to eat the toys, and then you run into foreign bodies and problems with that because of the fishing line. So just make sure you have somewhere safe to store it. So moving on, urination and defecation. It is not just about going to the bathroom for the cats. It is a way to, I don't like this mouse. It is a way to mark territory. What they're doing is sending signals to other cats, or mostly to other cats, but to other animals in their territory. They do it around the perimeter, and urine and feces mean different things, which means you don't necessarily put them in the same place. And when they are going to the bathroom, they're most vulnerable to attack. So that's the other thing you have to remember. Again, they are a prey species. So if they're vulnerable, they may choose not to go in a certain area because it doesn't feel safe to them. So when we're talking about litter boxes, we want comfortable, convenient, and safe locations. Clear, uncovered is preferred, again, so I can see what's around me. You need to have at least one location per cat, +1, because we don't urinate and defecate in the same place all the time. And if you have a multi-level house, you need to have at least one per floor, regardless of how many cats you have. Because if they are upstairs and the only litter box is downstairs and they can't get there for some reason, they're going to find somewhere else to go. And the other thing is they need to be large. So with these two examples here, the one on the top right corner, it's cute, it looks nice in your house, but you're making your cat go to the bathroom in a cave, and they don't do that. And so it's not really a very safe location. That cat has one exit, it's teeny tiny, it barely fits through it, and it can't see what's going on around it. So if there's another cat in the house or a dog that maybe the cat doesn't love, and he happens to be in there using the box and someone comes up and pokes their head in, now he's trapped. He's probably not going to go back there again. The one in the middle, it's kind of a standard litter box. Unfortunately, it's way too small for this cat. He barely fits in it. His tail's hanging out the back, his head's hanging out the front. He's doing a great job of using it, but some of them eventually are going to decide that's not okay. So this one is a more appropriate litter box. This is a full-grown cat. It's actually a big, large, clear storage tub. It's got a cutout in the front so he can climb in and out. There's also, you can't really see it in the picture, but there is a cat tree right next to it. So he could actually jump up on that cat tree if someone was coming towards him and he wanted to escape. And he can see all the way around him, and he's got plenty of room to scratch around and find the perfect spot to go to the bathroom. So then we got to talk about litter box care. So one of the complaints, of course, is, they track the litter all over the place. There's a really nice product called the Black Hole Litter Mat. You can get 1 or 2, depending on how big the cutout in front of your litter box is, and set them down in front of the litter box. They are soft, so they don't hurt the cat's feet because their feet are really sensitive. And they have little holes in them, so the litter will fall through. And then when it gets full, you just pick the mat up, dump it back into the box. Floor's clean. Most cats prefer fine, unscented clumping litter. That is more like what they would use in the wild. And there are products like Cat Attract, which is a litter additive you can put in to make it smell better to them and make them want to go back there a little bit more. You should be cleaning the litter box. It should be scooped daily. Especially if you don't have enough litter boxes, you may need to scoop more often. This one down in the corner is actually not a litter box, it's a cake. But that's not an appropriately scooped litter box. It's quite dirty. I wouldn't want to go anywhere near it. And I'm sure your cat probably doesn't either. As far as cleaning the litter box, you should empty and wash it at least every month or two. Fully empty it out, wash the whole thing out, use a mild soap and water. Don't use any citrus scents. Your nice little orange scented hand wash or dishwashing liquid that you use is a really bad thing to clean your litter box with because citrus is aversive to cats. And so if you want your cat to use your litter box, you do not want to make it smell like oranges and lemons. They will stay away. And then if you have accidents outside the box, whether it's over the edge, which is another reason the storage tubs are nice because it's really hard to go over the edge on those, or somewhere in the house, Urine Away is a great product that is enzymatic and will help get that odor out so that your cat can't smell it. Because their noses are better than ours, they can smell more than we can. Okay, so moving on, scratching. Why do they do it? Because it's a perfectly normal cat behavior. Our issue with it is when they scratch the things we don't want them to scratch, like our furniture or our drapes or our carpet. It's a way to groom their claws. The cat claws grow in layers. And so if they don't scratch and groom off those layers, then you're going to end up with overgrown nails. They grow into the paw pads. They're very painful. They can get infected. And that does happen more often in older cats, but even in cats that don't really have appropriate surfaces to scratch on, it can happen when they're younger. It's a way to scent high traffic areas. So it's a way to basically tell other cats or other people, this is where I've been. It's a way to stretch, and it's also a way to release anxiety. And so you need to give them that outlet. Appropriate scratching post is at least 30 inches tall because they need to do a full body stretch. Those little teeny tiny ones that you get at the pet store for your kitten, they might be great for your kitten. They are not good for your 11-pound adult cat because he can't stretch out on that. And it's going to fall over because they're held on by one screw and they get wobbly with time. It should be nice and heavy and stable so that when he does stretch on it, it doesn't move. I'm sure we've all experienced that. I'm doing a nice stretch and someone comes along and pokes you. That's not fun. And if the scratching post moves while they're stretching, it's the same experience. They prefer rough fabric. So sisal fabric and sisal rope are generally preferred. Sometimes carpet backing is a good one too, but the regular carpet coated ones, there's nothing rough there. They don't like that as much. And they can be vertical or horizontal. Some cats have preferences. So you may have to experiment a little bit to find out what your cat prefers. Some use both, some only want one type. So the most important thing, like many things, is location, location, location. They need to be in high traffic areas. If your scratching post is off in the corner in the room where nobody goes to, your cat's probably not going to use it because it has no reason to mark in there with its paw pads. You want to put them in places you spend a lot of time, and you want to put them near sleeping areas. So if you think about what the cat likes with the scratching post, this is the reason they like our sofas. Because we spend a lot of time on the sofa. They're usually in the middle of the living room where people spend a lot of time, and we're through there a lot, and the cats are through there a lot. The cats like to sleep on the sofa, so it's a great place when I wake up to stretch. The sofa is the right height, and it's heavy and it doesn't move. So it's the perfect scratching post as far as your cat is concerned. So if you have one that's scratching on something like that, if we set up a scratching post right next to it or nearby before they've started, that's going to be a better option than, again, off in the corner in some room we don't spend a lot of time in. There's also different ways to train them to use the scratching post. So you can put little toys on the top, like I've got up in the corner here. You can put treats on the top of the scratching post, so they've got to kind of stretch up the scratching post to get to the treats. There's a product called Fila Scratch, which has a visual marker by its color, as well as some scent pheromone markers to try and train them to use that. Probably works best in kittens. The other thing you can use is catnip. So you can make a catnip tea. You basically just steep some catnip in hot water, strain it, and you just spray it on the scratching post with a spray bottle. And so now the scratching post is saturated with the catnip, and you don't have flakes all over the floor to vacuum up. Hiding spots. Cats love to hide. It is a way to cope with stress or fear or some threat. So the other cat in the house I don't like, the toddler that keeps chasing me, the dog that I wish would leave me alone. Now I can go hide. I've got a place to get away. They also use it to play. And we've all seen that. They'll hide in somewhere and then they'll reach their foot out and grab you when you walk by. Or they'll dart out and then go back and hide. That's a very normal cat behavior, and they need to have that opportunity. If they don't have enough hiding spots, they're going to be more stressed. And this gives them a way when we can't reduce some of the stresses in their life, like I can't get rid of my kid. Now the cat has somewhere to hide away from the kid. That's going to help them cope with that a little bit until the child is old enough to maybe leave them alone a little bit more. The other thing is vertical space. Cats like to get up high. In the wild, they're up in trees, they're up in bushes, they're up on roofs. It gives them a safe place to kind of look down, watch for prey, watch for predators that might be trying to attack them. It helps them feel secure and comfortable. It's a place to escape if something's chasing them, because some of the animals that prey on cats don't climb trees. So I can go up a tree and I can get away from you. And they love to climb. So there are all kinds of scratching posts. There's a really big one here that may not fit in everybody's home. It certainly wouldn't fit in mine. But there are other options. So this is a nice example of something that was done with the walls. So there's shelves and climbing, scratching posts and resting perches. It fits in really nicely with the decor. Here's another one that's very similar. Lots of stuff, doesn't take up a lot of floor space. You can also get creative. So this one is in a little unused corner by the bookshelf in a room we spend a lot of time. We've got a window perch. And then we've got something as simple as a chair in front of a window ledge, which two of our patients are demonstrating for you. So moving on, nail trimming. When we're dealing with cat scratching, one of the things we can do to help minimize the damage is to trim their nails regularly. And this is also important if you have a cat with the big feet and the extra toes. Sometimes those they're not able to groom them themselves, and the nail can actually build up. It's really important with older cats too. Some of them don't scratch as much as they should, and so the claw has a tendency to build up. And if you can get them used to having their nails trimmed at a young age, then it's going to be much easier to do when they're older if they have issues. So you want to make it positive. You can use treats. I recommend getting special nail trimmers for your cat. You can use your dog's nail trimmers, but it's a lot harder. And my favorite is actually the upper right-hand corner, the scissor grip, because I think you have more control with those. But they do also make ones that are similar to the dog nail trimmers that are small. So I have a little video here.
Your cat's nails. You want them to back up so they back into you, just kind of like in the pilling demonstration.
So I'm just going to let this play.
And we're going to protrude. If we push here in the center of the paw pad, you can see that all of the four first toes come out at one time. And Hitch is a good example because it's a little difficult for you to appreciate the little pink triangle at the shape of his nail bed there because his nails are a little darker. The lighter the cat, the lighter the nail. Typically black cats, their nails are black too. And it's hard to appreciate the quick. The quick grows with the nail in a dog, but in a cat, it stays stagnant all the time. So when I go to push this out and I snip, I just want to snip right up to the quick.
Okay.
If you're only
And then one more technique, because this is a slightly different technique to hold the cat, and you sort of have, oops, I went too far. You have to practice and see what you're most comfortable with, and also what your cat is most comfortable with. But both of these, oops, well, there we go. So in this one, she's holding a little bit differently, more in her lap, which is how I train most of my cats. But either one is a good option. Okay, so at some point, your cat is going to need to leave your house and probably to go to the vet, maybe to go somewhere else. Maybe you're traveling, maybe you're moving, who knows. But we need to have them used to carriers. And so there's a couple of things to think about when you're purchasing the carrier. The first is it's really best to have a hard-sided carrier. The soft ones are nice and they're cute, but they are not as sturdy. They're not as safe if you're in the car. And if you're taking them to the vet and we need to do something and do part of our exam in the carrier, they're actually a lot harder to get the cat out of if the cat does not want to come out. So a hard-sided carrier with an easy-to-remove top, a front and top opening is preferred because then we can go in from either way to get the cat in or out of the carrier. It's a lot easier. You want to make the carrier part of your decor. It should be out all the time. It should be a fun, safe place for me to rest in. Because if the carrier only comes out once a year when I go to the doctor and I go to this strange place that smells funny and I get shots, why would I want to get in it? But if the carrier is out all the time and it's got a little soft bed in it and it's got maybe some treats and toys in it occasionally, and I can go in there and I can sleep and I can rest and I can hide, then it becomes a safe place and it's not as difficult to get the cat in there. So you just want to keep that in mind. Find a place that's going to work to have the carrier out all the time. And then it's ready when you need it. It's not dug up out of the basement where it's covered in cobwebs or the garage with leaves and dead bugs in it. Nobody likes that. And then we'll do a little bit about medicating your cat. So this is maybe not something you have to do all that often with your kitten, but as they get older, this may be something you have to do. And if you have taught them to accept medication when they are kittens, it's going to be a lot easier when they get older. And so I'll try and turn the sound off on this one. So in this video, she's actually demonstrating giving medication using a little bit of canned food, actually AD. There are some others you can use too. Baby food would work as well, like the chicken or beef baby food. And what she's doing is you get a rough textured surface, and she's putting the pill down on that surface and then squirting from a syringe a little bit of the food on top of that. And the cat is actually taking the pill herself. If you do this on a smooth surface like a table or a desk or tile floor, it's not going to work because the cat's just going to lick the food off and leave the pill behind. But if you're on a textured surface, in this case, it's carpet, but you can do this on like a washcloth. I do my barn cats this way on cement. It actually works really well, and they will usually get that pill. If you start when they're kittens, training them to do this, like twice a day, we're going to do our little treat time with our food. They will be much more accepting of taking medication when they're older because you've gotten them used to it already and you've made it positive because they're getting a special treat. Now, the idea with this is you don't, whatever you're using for that, you don't want to use for other treats. It shouldn't be their regular food. It needs to be something special so that they're more excited about it. So AD is a canned food that's easily syringeable. You can use plain meat baby foods, chicken, beef, pill pockets. Greenies makes pill pockets for cats. And again, if you've gotten them used to this when they're younger, it is much easier to do when they're older. They're not as suspicious of, well, why are you giving me this strange new treat? And some pills can also be put in gel caps. So that is something we offer. And if you have a cat on multiple medications, if those medications can be given at the same time, we can actually put multiple pills in the gel caps sometimes. And then instead of having to give 5 pills, I can give 1. But again, if you have trained your cat to do this from a young age, it's going to be a lot easier. You can start them out older. I started my cat last year when he was 4. It worked great. But he is also a chow hound and he loves canned food. So that helps. So there's a lot of videos and pictures. The videos are from fundamentallyfeline.com. There's also several other helpful websites on here for with more information on cat behavior, some thoughts on like food puzzle toys, for example. That first one is a great website for that. It's got all kinds of examples of ones you can buy, ones you can make, and some demonstration in that, as well as more information. Indoor Pet at OSU is a education service. They actually have been looking at environmental enrichment in cats for a very long time, and they've got a lot of information. And most of the cats they used in these studies were cats with problem behaviors that were actually relinquished because the owners could no longer afford to medicate or treat. And so they were working on what can we do besides the traditional medication, because obviously it's not working. Catfriendly.com is, I believe, the American Association of Feline Practitioners website. And then I've got another video from YouTube. So these are all great resources. Thank you for your time.